What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. This video is number 2 in a series of videos that I'm about to do on the philosophy of science. So if you haven't seen the first video, go and check that out so you can know where we left off. Today, we're going to talk about the philosophy of science as epistemology. Now, in case you didn't know, philosophy can be broken down into 4 main branches. There's epistemology, which is the study of knowledge. There's metaphysics, which is the study of the nature of reality. There's logic, which is the study of arguments and fallacies. And then there is ethics, the study of the principles of moral conduct. Now, the philosophy of science appears to have an answer to the question, how can we be sure that we know something instead of merely having an opinion or belief about something? Now, the answer typically offered is, well, consult the scientific method. Why? Well, because the scientific method is supposed to be drawn upon to either confirm or challenge our beliefs about, for example, climate change, the correlation between vaccines and autism, whether or not the earth is flat, whether or not drugs are addictive, whether or not homosexuality is natural or unnatural, whether or not smoking is correlated with cancer. So typically, the perspective of scientists are going to be consulted because they're the ones thought to have reached conclusions about such matters on the basis of the right kinds of methods of gathering and evaluating evidence. Thus, their conclusions are thought to be justified. Now, I want to offer you some thoughts about epistemology, which is the branch of philosophy that investigates knowledge and justification. Now, epistemology's central questions are, what is knowledge compared to mere belief? Can we be certain that we know something? And what things can we say we really know? Now, we all have beliefs. Some are true and others are false. But if I believe that something is true when it is not, then I'm not in possession of knowledge about the matter. For example, if I believe that Houston is the capital of Texas, then I don't know what the capital of Texas is. So, in logical terms, we say a necessary condition, and that is a condition that has to be satisfied, right? A necessary condition for somebody knowing some proposition is that the proposition is true. In other words, if somebody knows some proposition, then that proposition is true. But it's not the case that just because something is true, that somebody necessarily knows it. For example, there are a number of blades of grass in my lawn outside, but I can pretty much rest assured that it's not the case that somebody knows how many blades of grass there are in my lawn. Also, when someone believes something, even something plausible that happens to be false, the person may have thought they were in possession of knowledge, but they were not. So another necessary condition for somebody knowing some proposition is that he or she believes that proposition. So now we have 2 necessary conditions for knowledge. Knowledge is at least true belief. So you have to have truth and belief, but that's not enough. For example, if you believe you're going to win the lottery and you do win it after losing all the other times you played it, then you held a true belief, but you had no adequate reason to have held that belief. In this instance, you believed something that was true without really knowing that it would be true. We can now confidently say that something other than true belief is required if it's to amount to knowledge. So, well, what is this other thing? Adequate reason. And this begs the question, well, what is adequate reason? Now, the traditional view in philosophical epistemology has been that knowledge can only be claimed when we have an adequate justification for our beliefs. In other words, knowledge is justified true belief. That's true belief that is justified. So there's three parts there. True belief that is justified. But then this begs another question. What is justification? Justification is often thought to be provided by following scientific methods for testing or arriving at our beliefs. In fact, the word science comes from the Latin word scientia, which means knowledge. Thus, there's an overlap between philosophy and the philosophy of science in the area of epistemology. And the following kinds of questions have to be asked. What is the scientific method? How does evidence support a theory? Is the way theory changes or theories change in science a rational process? Can we really be said to know that scientific theories are true? Now, if we agree that science gives us knowledge, we have to evaluate specific scientific theories and investigate what they tell us about the world and decide what the scope and range of science actually is. The modern scientific picture of the world seems to tell us a great deal, not just about how things are now, but how they were millions, even billions of years ago. It gives us knowledge about things we can't currently see. For example, astrophysics tells us about the Milky Way now, but it also tells us about how the universe was in the first 100,000 years. Geology tells us about the current geophysical composition of the world now, but also about how the planet looked 3 million years ago. Furthermore, sciences like physics and chemistry describe things as real that we don't encounter in our everyday experience. I mean, have you ever seen a proton, a neutron, electron, or a microwave, or a gamma ray, or a black hole? Right? So should we believe that such unobservable entities actually exist? And if so, what is the justification for believing that such entities are real? So I'm going to stop there because that's a lot to think about, and I'll resume in the next installment. Peace out, y'all. Have a good day. 1.